Yes, of course I took the money. You would have too. These are hard times we're living in. Uncertain, unstable. There's political and economic unrest. We're all divided about who he is and what this all means anyway. Personally, I think he was frivolous. It was irrational. You should have seen how he gave his time and food away. He gave attention to people who didn't deserve the time of day. The resources I saw wasted. And sometimes he didn't even have a place to sleep. Me, I'm just trying to survive another day.
There we go. Anybody ever been betrayed? Betrayed? Back here? Okay, all the way in the back. See if I can reach you. Bam. Anybody else? Been betrayed by a friend, a loved one, a best friend? Right here. Here we go, front row. This guy's getting baptized in a couple weeks. Let's go. Anybody else? He deserves another one. Let's go. Back there. All right. We got back there. Betrayed by a friend. Maybe an ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend. Been betrayed? Yeah. I've been there. We've all been there. You want chocolate? It's like, I don't care about that. Just give me chocolate. There you go. That's awesome. He gets what he wants. Hey, there's a term that the kids are using these days. It's called catfished. Everybody know what the term is? Catfished? All right. Let me introduce you to what it is, because some of you might not know. So let me tell you what the term is. It's this: someone who pretends to be someone else. Right? This is what usually happens to catfish victims. Catfish victims usually end up falling, somebody say falling, in love with a person that does not exist. And our villain today, man, you've probably, if you figured it out, if you know who it is, some of you are just, you're church. You know what I mean? Your church, you know who this is. If you know who this is, shout it out. Judas. Judas is someone who has spent his life pretending. And he too he betrayed Jesus with a kiss, right? And but let me tell you a story about just being catfish. Now, sometimes this catfish, someone who pretends to be someone else. Sometimes that usually happens online, right? You get catfished online. You fall in love with someone else that doesn't really exist online. But that's sometimes. It also can happen in play in real life as well. So, like, I remember when I was in high school. There we go again. I remember when I was in high school. All of my stories, high school. I was a sophomore in high school, and I grew up in Las Vegas. And this is a South Side, very affluent place. And I just transferred schools. So I left school in the north side of Las Vegas to the south side, went to the school in the south side. And so I'm new at the school. And so I met a couple of people, became friends with some people. This particular guy, his name's Kenny. Somebody say Kenny. Kenny's a good friend of mine. And we became good friends. Like, he just kind of brought me in, introduced me to some other people, connections. We're becoming good buddies. Like, he's a good guy. I play basketball. He plays basketball. And so, like, man, we're becoming good friends. And so I'm sitting in government class one day, okay? I'm in government class, and I get a text on my phone. And thank God I got a text, because I'm bored in government class, okay? I got a text on my phone, and some of you might remember this. Like, I had like a sidekick. Anybody ever had a sidekick? You know what I'm talking about? Like the kick phones that kicked up. And so I had a sidekick. I mean, I was so excited. I love my sidekick. Like, you didn't get a text message. You just want to kick it up, you know? So I got my sidekick. I got a text message. Pulled it out. Check my phone. And I get a text message, and the text says, are you going to basketball practice today? And I said, yeah, ... Why? And the person replied, well, I'm actually going to be around the same area. Are you going by Las Vegas High School? You guys have basketball practice? I was like, yeah, I have a basketball practice there. It's AAU, it's travel ball, so we have practice that day, and it's at 5:30. And so I texted the person back and said, yeah, I got practice. It's tonight at 5:30. Who is this? And they replied, it's like, well, you don't know me, but a friend of mine showed me a picture of you, and I thought you were kind of cute. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, here we go. All right, it's the text I wanted. I'm in government class, okay? Don't judge me. And I get the text. I'm like, all right. And so she asked her to send me a picture. Guys, don't do that, okay? I just want to let you know, don't do that, okay? I'll get you in trouble. But she sends me a picture. It's a clean picture, okay? Just want to put that out there, okay? It's a clean picture. She sends me a picture of herself. I'm like, she's kind of pretty. I'm like, all right, here we go. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to be at practice at 5:30. I can meet you down there. She was like, oh, great, I'll be down there at the same time. And so I'm in class. I'm not thinking about anything else that he has to say. I'm thinking about later on hanging out with this girl, getting to meet this girl. And so I go through lunch, go to PE. I'm just thinking about her the whole time, like nothing else. I tell my friend Kenny, like, look, this girl texts me. She's going to be at practice with us, or she's going to be at practice down there. I'm going to get to connect with her before and after practice. He was like, oh, that's cool. And so he was happy for me because, like, I'm new to the area. I don't know much people. And this is going somewhere. I promise it's going somewhere. And so I tell him about this girl, and we go to basketball practice. I text her while I'm there. I'm putting on my shoes, my sneakers, and I'm putting on my shoes. And I text her, hey, I'm here. Are you here yet? She says, I'm around in the area, but I'll see you afterwards. And I said, okay. And so I'm playing ball in practice. It's an hour and a half practice, running suicides. I'm not thinking about, I'm sprinting through those suicides. You know what I mean? I'm getting through them. I'm beating everybody. I'm thinking about this girl. Afterwards, I'm going to hang out with her. So practice is over. I text her, I was like, hey, where you at? I'm heading towards the Burger King. And so she's like, oh, okay. I'm actually on my way there too. And so we're walking, Kenny and I are walking to Burger King, taking a walk to Burger King. And I text her, I'm like, all right, I'm here. Where are you? And she says, I'm right behind you. I'm like, what? I'm right behind you. And so I turn around. I'm like, I text her, I was like, I don't see you. I don't see anybody. And she says, I'm right here. And this happened like 3 times. And then Kenny looks at me and starts laughing. I'm like, and it finally put it together that Kenny texted me in government class, and I didn't have his number saved, and he went to play along with it. And he pretended to be this girl. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like so mad at him because he pretended to be somebody who's not. Catfished. You know what I'm talking about? But have you ever pretended to be someone you're not in front of someone else only to impress them? Right? Like you find yourself pretending to be someone you're not in front of someone. Like church people are guilty of this. We do this all the time. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's Sunday morning. You're coming to church. You're trying to book at the church. You wake up late. You're scrabbling, trying to get your place, trying to get your kids in the car. They get in the car. How many are in the car? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, they're all in the car. You come into church. You get to church. You're arguing. Hey, did you turn off the stove? No, I thought you were supposed to. I let the dog out. You're supposed to turn off the stove. And you're like arguing the whole time. You get to church. You finally coming up the stairs, and someone meets you at the door. You're like, hey, brother, how's it going? Great, blessed today. Doing well. Thank you. Doing great. And we're really good at pretending. And we think it's easier to put on a mask and to be honest with ourselves, right? And we do that because honestly, come on. Really, pretending it feels good. It's comforting, right? It's good to feel like you're not being yourself in this moment. It's good to put on a mask and to hide what's actually going on, to share your feelings with somebody else around you. It feels good to kind of cover it up and to kind of hide what's actually happening. It feels good. But come on, you know this because you've probably experienced this before. Like I've experienced it. Pretending, how many of you know that pretending is exhausting? Pretending to be someone you're not is exhausting, right? And in a culture where it's so easy to pretend, and in a culture where it fosters this pretentious spirit, right? Come on. Like, you have to drive this kind of car. You got to go to this kind of school. You got to graduate from this kind of school. You got to get this kind of job, right? You got to have these kind of friends. You got to marry this kind of person. You got to have these kind of kids, and they got to live this kind of way, right? It's easy to become a part of a culture where it's easy, like, it's pushed on you to have this kind of performance. And so when you feel like you don't measure up, you put on a mask and you pretend to be someone that you're not. But that's exhausting. And we all know that pretending sometimes somehow, at some point, it spills over somewhere. Right? The person that you're pretending to be, the cover-up that you have, somehow, at some point, it spills over somewhere, and oftentimes that spills over where? Into your relationships. It spills over into your relationship with your spouse, with your partner. It spills over the relationship with your friends, and the way you parent your kids, right? You can fool the parents, but you can't fool your kids because you can only pretend for so long because it's going to spill over somewhere at some point. It affects the way you lead at work. It affects your home. It affects your environment. And our villain today, his name is Judas. And Judas is the king of pretending. And he's pretending and he's keeping up this mask that eventually backfires on him. And he becomes a version of himself that he doesn't want to be. Now, Judas, he's a pretty smart guy. In fact, he was the money holder of the whole disciples. Like, he was the accountant. He counted all the money. He took care of that. And one day it was Judas, and he's with him and Jesus and the disciples, and they're at this guy's house. His name's Simon. And they're all there, and man, like it was supposed to be a small gathering, but words got out that not only the disciples and Judas is there and Jesus is there, but word got out that a guy that Jesus raised from the dead, his name is Lazarus, he's also there at this house. And so people kind of catch word that Lazarus is there. They're like, what? Lazarus raised from the dead? Is this true? And so they're all like a museum kind of hang out outside of Simon's house in the windows, kind of peeking in to see, trying to get view of this guy that just been raised from the dead. And so they're all there hanging out. Jesus was reclined at the table. This woman comes walking in, and she anoints Jesus' feet. We're going to talk about this more at Christmas, but she anoints Jesus' feet. And with this perfume that was very expensive, it actually was worth a year's wages, and she broke it and anointed Jesus' feet. And Judas and some of the other disciples, Judas is standing there in the back, and he's kind of watching what's happening. He's kind of tapping his feet like, and he says these words right here. He says, Judas, why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It's a good question. I mean, it's very expensive. It's worth a year's wages. Come on, somebody. That's a lot of money. And she breaks this perfume on Jesus, and she's using it on Jesus' feet. And he says, why wasn't this given to the poor? It's worth a year's wages. But he goes on to say, he did not say this. This is what John tells us. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself. This is what Judas did. Like, he was the keeper of the money. And here's the thing about money. Money, sometimes, it becomes a foothold. You know what I'm talking about? You experience this. Money becomes emotional sometimes, doesn't it? Right? We've all noticed as an adult, you grow up. Like somehow money evolves into this emotional thing. Like when the less I have of it, or the more I have, the more I feel, or the less I feel, right? And money is this thing that just gains control over us sometimes. And it gains control in Judas's life. Anybody have Bank of America? That you bank with Bank of America? We're not taking up another offering. I'm just asking, okay? Let me see your hand. Okay, got some people back there. All right, got other people. Bank of America. I'm a merchant. I bank with Bank of America. I love Bank of America. I think our banker actually comes here from Bank of America. And one of my favorite things about Bank of America is their mobile app. Anything mobile for me is great. Okay, and so I have my phone and I have Bank of America on my phone. Every time I want to deposit something, man, it's easy just to do it right there. And so I love Bank of America. I love it. One of my favorite things though about Bank of America, and some of you that you raise your hand like. Who was that again? I want to see. You know what I'm talking about. You know where I'm going with this. So on the mobile app, if you have the mobile app, you pull it up. The first words that you say, this is Bank of America in the bottom, there's some words that pops up that like I love, like it makes me feel good inside. It says this. It says, what would you like the power to do? Man, I feel good when I open up my mobile app. I'm like, what would you like? Me? I have the power. I have the power to do this. And then I open up my account. I'm like, okay, never mind. I guess I'll eat it tonight. Right? And it's just like money has this ability to have power over your life. And Judas was the keeper of the money, but a side note, like Jesus, his bills were paid by two women. Did you know that? Like two women traveled with Jesus. They actually lived in the palace. And they were apparently bored, and they started to follow Jesus, and they actually paid his bills. And my wife, she works a full-time job. She pays our bills. One time I was dropping her off at work. I was like, go make my money. You didn't find that funny? Okay. And she pays our bills. Like, she's awesome. Like, she works hard. And so, like, these women, they pay Jesus' bills, and Judas is the one supposed to be overseeing this and keeping account for the money that's coming in, and it becomes a foothold in his life. And now he feels like this money has become a foothold in his life. Oftentimes, he leverages that money, and Satan uses it in his life to become not just a foothold, but to put up a seat at his table. And that's what money does. It controls us, and it gives the enemy an opportunity to have a seat at your table. Not money. Look, I'm not saying that money is bad. Money is good, right? Money is a good thing. You need money. Money is not everything, but you need it for everything. Come on, somebody, right? But if you allow money to get a foothold in your life, what oftentimes happens is that it gives the enemy a seat at your table. And that's what happens with Judas. His love for money gives the enemy a seat at his table. I mean, this is what the verse says. It says this. Then Satan entered Judas, one of the 12. Now Judas and the chief priest, says this on the verse. It says, he went to the chief priest and asked, what are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you? What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you? So after this whole soiree with disciples, and they're at Simon's house, Lazarus there, everybody's there kind of looking in, like, man, this dude is raised from the dead, like, he's right there. What happens is they get ready to celebrate this Passover. Now, the Passover is, I'll explain it in just a moment, but the Passover, the disciples come to Jesus and say, Jesus, hey, it's about time for the Passover. Where do you want us to celebrate the Passover? And so Jesus says to his disciples, look, there's a guy in the city. Go find, not San Francisco, obviously, right? Okay, King, we know that. Stop it, okay? There's this guy. Go find him, and he's already got the preparations. He's got a room for us, and for all of you. We're gonna hang out there. We're gonna celebrate the Passover together. And so that's what happens. So they go find this guy in the city, and he says, "Yep, I'm the guy." And he brings the disciples up to this room where Jesus is going to celebrate the Passover with his disciples. And so they're all there, and this is supposed to be like a big celebration. Like this is going to be an awesome event. Like this is like there's food involved. Whenever there's food involved, it's a big. That's awesome when there's food involved. So there's food involved. The disciples are all there. They're sitting. You've seen the paintings, right? You've seen the paintings, and they're all there, and they're sitting there. They're having conversations. They're talking about all the miracles that Jesus has done. They're talking about Jesus feeding the 5,000. All the things that they've seen, the miracles that have happened. Judas was there. Everybody's there. Everybody just celebrating the Passover. It's a big deal. And they're just laughing and sharing memories and sharing stories from the past. And then it gets really awkward. Because Jesus says to them, he says, one of you are going to betray me. And it gets really awkward. There's Jesus, his disciples, and he says, for truly I tell you that one of you will betray me. And they all, one by one, they look at Jesus and they're like, wait, me? They were all very sad and began to say to him one after the other, surely you don't mean me, Lord. Right? They're all like, whoa. We're going to betray. You're not talking about me, right? Not me. What about, John's like, Jesus, what about me? Am I going to betray you, Jesus? What about me? What, Peter, Lord, I followed you. Like, it's not going to be me. Is it me? And then later on, a couple of verses later, Judas leans in. And Judas is thinking like, man, this is probably the last time that I'm going to see Jesus as a friend. The next time he's going to see me, it probably won't be good for him. And so Judas kind of leans in to Jesus and he says, surely you don't mean me, Rabbi. And if you notice the difference between the disciples addressing Jesus and Judas, it says, surely you don't mean me, Lord. And Judas says, surely you don't mean me, Rabbi. You see, there's a difference. Right? Lord has the idea of master of my life. Like, Lord has the idea of reverence over everything that I love and own. Lord has the idea that, like, it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to you. And Rabbi is, I don't reverence you, but I respect you. You're a great teacher. You're a great teacher. Man, all the teachings, I've been with you for 3 years now. You're one of the greatest out there. And he says, surely you don't mean me, Rabbi. And right there in that moment, it reveals Judas's heart of his relationship with Jesus. You see, there's a difference between religion and a relationship. You can have a religious experience with God and not have a relationship with him. It's possible to come to church, it's possible to live your life and to go through this religious experience. Like, you just follow the list, you follow the laws, you dot your T's, you cross your I's, like you're just doing everything that you're supposed to do, right? You've all been there, you've had a religious experience with God. There's a difference between a religious experience and actually entering into a genuine and real and authentic and life-giving relationship with God. And for Judas, it's all surface level. For Judas, it's all, what can you give me? What can you do for me? How can I feel good in this moment? It's not a relationship, it's religion. And Jesus answered him. Jesus says, well, you have said so. You have said so. And now they're sitting there at the table, and there's Judas and the disciples. It's kind of an awkward conversation that's happening. And then Jesus goes ahead and he explains what the Passover is. Now, for some of my friends that are not Christians, because I do want to say this before I go any further, like, if you're not a Christian, like, you don't have to pretend to not be, or to be a Christian. Like, it's okay to show up to church on Sunday, to this movie theater, and just kind of seek, to just be curious. Look, in the culture where there's a lot of places that you can pretend, and in fact, they want you to pretend. When you go to work, you need to clock in, you need to meet these goals, and if you don't meet these goals, look, you're not going to measure up. Look, in a world where it's easy to pretend, and in a world where it's easy to put on a mask, look, this place, Storyline, is a place you can come and you can be welcome. This is a place that you could come and say, look, I don't have to pretend. This is who I am, and I'm here just seeking, getting to know who God is. And Jesus gets ready to explain the Passover to the disciples, and he says, look, this is a moment that what you've known in the past, what you've known as your religious experience, you're going to forget that, and it's going to be something different. In fact, he breaks the bread, and he says, look, eat of my body. He says, just as this bread is broken, for you, my body's going to be broken for you. He says, this is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. He pours some wine, and he says, look, hey, look, you can have some of this and take, just as this wine is poured, like, my blood is going to be spilled out and poured out for you, for your forgiveness of sins. And so Jesus is explaining what's happening, and the disciples, they're like, whoa. Jesus, no. Like, you can't, no, we're not supposed to do this. Like, because you have to understand, these are Jewish boys. And what they understand the Passover to be is in relationship with Moses, right? The Passover was the idea of Moses leading the children of Israel out of Egypt, out of slavery, out of oppression. That's what they understood it to be. So when they thought of the Passover, they thought of Moses. And now Jesus is standing before them, and he says, look. Whatever you thought this to be in the past, it's not about Moses. Be thankful for that. But this is to get you to this point now. It's not about this list of religious expectations and duties and laws and commandments that you have to follow. No, that's the past. Be thankful for it, but that was to get you to where we are now, which is a relationship with me. And all of the disciples are right there gathered, and there's Judas in the middle of what's happening. And you think that he would have got it. And there's Jesus giving him another opportunity to come into a genuine relationship with himself. The evening kind of dies off. Jesus takes them for a walk. And somehow Judas fades in the background of the evening, of the night. And the next time we see Jesus is the following morning, when he's already constructed and put together this plan with the chief priest. By the way, that's what happened. He went to the chief priest and says, look, what would you give me to do? Isn't it funny that's what we do to solve our problems sometimes? We go to the religious leaders, right? Maybe this religious experience can solve my problem. Like, whatever's happening right here with me, this game, this pretending, this mask that I'm wearing, man, I'm trying to take off this mask. I can't do it, so I'm going to go to this religious experience. I'm going to go to this religious leader, and somehow he's going to help me remove this mask, remove this pretentious spirit that I have. But again, friends, look, religion will never free you. A religious experience is never going to free you. It's a genuine relationship with Jesus. And so he goes to these religious leaders, and he kind of constructs this plan with them. And he says, look, I'm going to go to the garden where they're going to be at. They're going to be praying. And when I get there, the one that I kiss, that's the one that you're going to take. And so there's the disciples in the garden. They're supposed to be praying. Judas comes up, and there's hundreds of men that are with him to take Jesus, as if he's leading a rebellion, with swords and with spears. And they all come, and there's Judas leading the pack, leading ahead. And he comes up, and he finds Jesus, and it says this. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said, "Do what you came for, friend." Have you been betrayed? Oh, sorry. That was a bad throw. Have you been betrayed? Yeah? Come on. By a friend? Someone that stabbed you in the back? Come on, somebody. Right? Right here? Betrayed by maybe a spouse sometimes? Yeah? Betrayed by a spouse? You been there? Maybe it wasn't like something that was you can't go back from, but maybe she said something, he said something in the moment, and you felt like you were betrayed. It it cuts you to the heart. That's what happens right now to Jesus. And he responds and he says, do what you came for, friend. He opened up his back and says, look, just do what you came to do. And that night, that evening, all of the disciples, I bet you didn't know this. Maybe some of you did, because you're super churched, right? But all of the disciples that night, they actually betrayed Jesus, all of them. From the most committed, Peter, to Judas, and everything in between. They all betrayed Jesus that night. And Jesus told them that night, he says, that night, you would actually betray me, all of you. He says it right here in these words. He says, on account of me, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. He says, look, it was written a long time ago that this would happen. That once the shepherd is struck, the sheep will scatter. And that's exactly what happens. They all, that night, betray Jesus, including, of course, Judas. And all of them came back to Jesus. All of them came back to Jesus because they had a relationship with him. Except for Judas. Except for Judas. And so Judas is there with this army, this band of people. And they take Jesus. And it says this, early in the morning, all the chief priests and elders of the people made their plans of how to have Jesus executed. And there's Jesus. And so they bound him and led him away and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. And there's Jesus being betrayed by a friend, being betrayed by someone who he thought loved him, who he thought was a friend. Someone who was pretending to be someone they weren't. You see, what happens next to Judas is something I'm sure that he didn't expect. What happens to Judas, I'm sure he didn't anticipate coming next. Do you know what happened? It says this, when Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he saw what happened, that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse. He felt guilty. He had a lot of pressure on his heart. He had a lot of baggage that he was carrying. And he returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. And he said these words, he says, for I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. Judas saw that, look, man, there was something about Jesus that was innocent. There was something about Jesus that was true. There was something about Jesus that was righteous, that was good. And I feel guilty. I feel innocent that I feel guilty that I've betrayed innocent blood. And so there's this remorse, there's this guilt that he's feeling. And it says next, it says, what is that to us? He goes to the religious leaders and says, look, I'm guilty. I've done a bad thing. Look, here, the money that I've taken from you that you've given to me to betray Jesus, look, I'm sorry, but look, here, you can have it back. You can have it back. And he throws down the money to them and he says, look, they say this is your responsibility. Like, what is this to us? Like, this is your part. What is this to us? This is your responsibility. And that's like the religious system to do that. The baggage that you're carrying, the guilt that you're carrying. Look, what is this to us? It's your responsibility. You fix it, right? You follow the list of laws. You obey this. You do that. You do this. And when you fix it, you can come back to us. And he says, this is your responsibility. And he's feeling this weight. He's feeling this baggage. And the verse says next, it says, so Judas threw the money into the temple and left. That's what happens. He can't bear the weight of that. He can't bear the baggage of that. He can't bear his guilt. his remorse, his pain, this betrayal. He probably thought to himself, look, how am I ever going to talk about God again? How am I ever going to? And he's in this place that he's just like, I can't bear that. So he tries to fix it. And he hangs himself. And he hangs himself. You see, when you pretend to be someone you're not, you're only betraying yourself. Judas didn't expect to go down this path. Judas didn't expect to go down this road. But the weight, the guilt of what he's experiencing, he couldn't bear it, and he tries to fix it himself by giving away back the money, and hopefully maybe that would help. But he still can't bear that weight, that guilt, that pain, that resentment. He can't take back that decision. And so instead of going to Jesus, he tries to take care of it himself. And when you pretend to be someone you're not, you're only betraying who you are. You're only betraying yourself. And the entire time, this is, maybe you don't believe this, but this is what I believe. This is the entire time. At any moment, Jesus, I know this about Jesus because he's done it for me. Jesus, at any moment, he would have said, come back. Come back, friend. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter your past. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past to other people, how you've hurt other people, how you've actually damaged yourself. It doesn't matter what you've done. Look, just come back, friend. Because it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, look, my body was broken for you. My blood was spilled out for you. Yeah. And if you come to me, look, you can have life. You can have freedom. You can have joy. You can have passion. And Jesus was at any moment willing to receive Judas back. I mean, in his last breath, he says, look, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. He would have said the same thing to Jesus, only if Judas would have received on his part. Only if Judas would have said, yep, I'm coming back to you, Jesus. And so let me encourage you, friend. No matter what kind of faith journey you're on, if you have a relationship with Jesus, or maybe you have a religious experience and you've just been following a list of do's and don'ts your entire life because it's been projected by you by the religious system, I want to say this. Look, put it down, leave it alone, and come back to Jesus. So let me pray for you.